Let's talk Torah. Parshat VaYeshev, Friday, Erev Shabbat, and then Erev, thanks, I'm so tired. Erev Chanukah. Chanukah begins Sunday night, and it's so interesting when all of these different moments converge. Obviously, Shabbat comes with a constant kind of light, thank God. And so too does Hanukkah come around with a very unique kind of light. You might know, and we'll talk about this more next week, that there are various traditions, at least in the ancient world, about how to light the candles. Jonathan Orenstein, all the way from Krakow. Sending you such love, my friend, appreciation for your heroic work. May you and your family and your community have so much light. Really, I'm so touched that you're here. So let's talk for a little second about how Parshat VaYeshev might be connected in a deep way to these ideas. One of the ways that we can connect is to recognize that Joseph's journey, which we have been tracking now for this Parsha, and will really dominate the rest of the story until the end of Breshit, Joseph's story is about ups and downs, literally, physically, spiritually, metaphysically. He begins at the pinnacle of privilege, where he is part of this dynasty and the chosen one of his generation, receiving more love than his siblings, which of course is a setup. And he's wearing this beautiful clothing, and we compared it this week to what if in the serious cold that touches our world, you loved one of your children enough to give them a coat, but not the others. Well, in a really serious sense, that's what Jacob does. He leaves his other children out in the cold. And they feel it, and they can't speak kindly to Joseph. And he doesn't pay attention to the impact that his words are having on them. It is so complicated. And then Joseph is thrown down into a pit by his jealous brothers. From the pit he's sold into slavery. From slavery he's brought down to Egypt, the text says. In Egypt, he rises a little bit above his station because he brings such talent that it's hard to miss it. And so Potiphar, a nobleman, or at least a rich person in Egypt, hires him as his chief steward. Hires, which means buys, and assigns him to be chief steward. Potiphar's wife tries to seduce Joseph. He's beautiful to look at. Joseph resists. She accuses him falsely of assault, throws him into jail. And that's where we'll begin today's thought. He's in a dungeon, down in Egypt, below the privilege. Where is his light? In the great darkness of his moment, there are sources of light still, but they aren't ones that are visible to the eye. What does the light look like before we strike the candle, friends? How does Joseph recover? How does he dream? In jail, he's not the one who dreams. A baker and a butler are, and the butler is the cupbearer. They have dreams, and Joseph is still able to interpret them. He says, "Tell me the dreams, and I'll interpret them." And he does, and the baker will die, and the butler will be restored to his status. But still Joseph is in the dungeon. In the moments of deepest darkness that actually were the beginning of this Torah community almost 3 years ago, who would have dreamt that Elise would be with us in Ecuador? Who would have dreamt that Jonathan would be with us in Krakow? Who would have dreamt that Catherine would be with us in Australia? Right now, in this community, with your eyes closed, just think about a connected world of people aching to learn and to do good and to be friends, to be kind. The Parsha actually ends with not such a great note. Joseph says to the cupbearer, to the butler, you will be restored, and please remember me. That's what Joseph says. At the very end of this Parsha, it's so powerful. VaYeshev etzar hamashkim al mashkeu. The cupbearer was brought back to their work. Vayiten akos al kaf paro, and he placed a goblet in Paro's hand. Vetzar haofim tala, and they hung the baker, just as Joseph had said, kasher patar lam Yosef. Velo zachar sar hamashkim et Yosef vayishkachehu. There's a doubling of language here. The first verse in our Parsha, VaYeshev Yaakov be'eretz migurei aviv. Two ways of being in a place. Jacob wanted to settle down where his ancestors could just wander. Well, there are two kinds of forgetting in the end of this parsha. The Sar Mashkim, the butler, didn't remember Joseph, Vayishkachehu, and actively forgot him. There are two kinds of forgetting. Sometimes we're so overwhelmed by circumstance, we can't hold on to what just happened. You ever have that? I have that sometimes. I daven the Amidah, I pray the central prayer 3 times a day, and I'm moving so fast, or maybe I'm so preoccupied with other things, I can't remember whether or not I just said the paragraph that I chanted. That's just being overwhelmed, and that's fair. We have been through so much, friends. It's hard to remember it all. Without Penny telling us that this is broadcast 693, would I possibly remember that? Certainly not. We remind each other of certain things, but there's a different kind of forgetting that the butler should feel ashamed of and later does. Vayishkachehu. That he pushes it all away, pushes it all below, pushes it all behind. That's not a healthy way of being. To push that stuff away, that's a forgetting that dooms us to not actually do better. We've been through quite a lot, friends. And some have called it, I shared earlier this week, that I learned with a wonderful professor from Columbia, George Bonanno, whose most recent book is called The End of Trauma. But he's part of a school that doesn't call it post-traumatic stress disorder. They talk about post-traumatic growth. Yes, there is PTSD, which is a very serious thing and requires significant treatment. It affects many people in different ways. But there is something about post-traumatic growth as a philosophy that we can look at in this week's Parsha. Jacob seems not to have learned from the trauma that he went through when he favors one child. What will Joseph learn from all of these experiences that he's had? From his journey from the top, literally, to the bottom. Eventually, you and I know he will be the second in charge to Pharaoh and save the world from famine. What kind of growth will he demonstrate? Will he forget what he's been through? Now, I'll tell you the answer in advance. No. He will not forget. He will emerge as a different kind of person. And so too will his brothers. What we are headed to, friends, is worthy of the light of Hanukkah. What we are headed to is a moment at the end of the book of Genesis where a generation can stand together and love each other, protect each other. It's a unique moment in the Torah. It feels like a unique moment in human history to think about. But just for a second, I invite you as we get ready for Shabbat right now. I'll do it. You'll see me do it. I invite you to do it where you are. Just close your eyes and imagine the light that you need where you are. And imagine that you take that light that you have the power to kindle and you place it in the window. Because not only is that light meant for you, it is not diminished when you share it with others. This world is in deep need of the light you have the power to ignite. And the most important way to do it is to not actively push away the hard-earned lessons that we have gained together as a community and united as a world. Yes, it's a unique moment in the book of Bereshit when the brothers stand together. But that doesn't mean it has to remain unique. We can stand together. We can light our lights. We can shine a light. I hope some of you, as we open our eyes, will join me at Times Square on Monday. UJA and many other organizations will be putting on an incredible festival for Hanukkah where we will shine a light on anti-Semitism but not be defined by it. We will live forward with passion and illuminate this world with everything we've got. You, friends, are the reason we have that strength. You are that strength. We begin within one candle, and we're going to keep on growing and growing and growing until the whole world is bright and beautiful and hopeful. Friends, wherever you are, wherever you are. Bless you. May you go into this Shabbat with memory, with your eyes closed, seeing the light that you wish to experience, with your eyes open, remembering that you and I can light those lights, starting with 2 tonight for Shabbat, and moving all the way forward into the gorgeousness of Hanukkah, starting Sunday night. Bless you, friends. Sending you such love. Let's get ready for Shabbat in honor of Jonathan. Here's a good nigun for Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom and a very early Chag Urim Sameach. Happy Hanukkah, everybody. Take care.